I never imagined a distress text would lead to a life-changing encounter in an elevator. The moment my phone buzzed, I felt a rush of panic. The message was abrupt, out of nowhere. "Help me." Just those 2 words sent chills down my spine. They were from my best friend, Mia. I had seen her just yesterday, laughing over coffee, her smile bright enough to light up the dimmest of rooms. But now? My heart raced. What could possibly have gone so wrong? I remember the scent of freshly brewed coffee still lingering in my clothes as I rushed to the lobby of my apartment building. I could hear my own breath, ragged and panicked, as I slammed the button to the elevator with trembling hands. The seconds felt like an eternity as I waited. Where was she? Why hadn't she said more? The doors finally slid open with a hiss. The elevator was eerily empty. Just those cold metal walls surrounding me. I stepped in, heart pounding like a drum. I pressed the button for the ground floor. It felt like I was descending into an uncertain abyss. My stomach knotted tighter with each passing floor. As the elevator jerked to a stop, the lights flickered above. My mind raced. Something was off. Then, a familiar voice broke the silence. "You shouldn't be here." I turned, startled. A girl stood in the corner, her eyes wide and wild, like a deer caught in headlights. I blinked, trying to make sense of it all. Who was she? Before I could ask, she stepped forward, her voice trembling. "You have to help me. They're coming for me." My heart sunk as dread wrapped around me like a vice. The air thickened, charged with suspense, each inhalation a struggle. I glanced around the elevator. It felt like there was something watching us, lurking in the shadows of the metal walls. "Who?" I managed to whisper, my throat dry. "The ones in suits," she stammered, eyes darting. "They know you, they know her." My mind whirled. Who were these people? What had Mia stumbled into? Suddenly, the elevator lurched back into motion, and my stomach dropped again. My blood ran cold. The lights flickered more violently, and I could hear the hum of static whispering through the walls. Time seemed suspended. The girl reached for my arm, her grip tight. "Just trust me. We have to get out." I was torn. Confusion gripped me like a vice. Fear flooded my senses. And then, out of nowhere, the lights died. An all-consuming darkness enveloped us. A mechanical whirring echoed. The girl screamed. What had I walked into? What was happening? My heartbeat became a thunderous roar in my ears. I felt lost, spiraling into chaos. I wanted to shout for Mia, for answers, but all that escaped my lips was silence. What was waiting for us outside the elevator? What had I just let myself be dragged into? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The darkness was an oppressive shroud, thick and suffocating. I could feel the girl's panicked breath against my skin, warm but unsteady. My heart raced, but it seemed to echo in the hollow of my chest, drowning out all other sound. I stretched out my hand, seeking comfort in the physical connection, but even before I found her, a sudden jolt exploded through the elevator, sending us crashing down another floor. The metal shrieked in protest, and we clung to each other, two souls adrift in a tempest of terror. Another scream pierced the silence, but it was mine this time, mixed with the girl's. The elevator halted abruptly, creating an unsettling stillness that was almost worse than the fall. What just happened? I gasped, forcing my voice out of the clutches of fear. They're trying to stop us, she whispered, her eyes wide and gleaming with desperation. They need her, who? I pressed, the urgency unnoticed for a moment in the sheer weight of the young woman's panic. Mia. You don't understand. We have to get her out. She's in danger. Her words struck with an urgency that ignited my resolve. Mia was in danger. The earlier warmth of coffee and laughter melted away into a chilling reminder of the dark edge we now teetered upon. My mind was racing, grappling with the implications of everything. Yet, shrouded in uncertainty, I clung to a thread of determination. Tell me, how do we find her? But before the girl could respond, a sudden, oppressive weight fell on us, a heavy silence replacing the pressure of the fall. I could sense something sinister creeping outside the metal walls, something waiting to ensnare us in its grasp. The darkness began to peel back like a waking nightmare, revealing the dim outline of a panel. A flicker of hope ignited in my chest. Perhaps there was a way out. We need to pry open the doors, I said, heart pounding. If we can just lift them. Wait. She hissed, gripping my arm tightly, her face a mix of pleading and fear. What if they're out there? They'll know you were with me. I hesitated. Each moment stretched, taut with tension. Could we even trust the world outside this elevator? Pushing the thought away, I nodded. If Mia was in trouble, fear was a luxury I couldn't afford. The flicker of light returned, transforming the engulfing blackness into a dulled glow. I pulled at the elevator doors with all my strength, the metal groaning under pressure. Just as they began to inch open, a loud, sharp knock echoed, a warning resonating through the narrow space. My breath caught in my throat. Go. The girl yelled, her eyes darting toward the crack revealing the cold hall beyond. Now, with a surge of adrenaline, we squeezed through the opening, tumbling onto the floor of a dim hallway that felt more like a nightmare than reality. The air was chilled, laced with an unsettling aroma of antiseptic and dread. I could see the shadows of figures moving down the corridor, hidden in the equipment-strewn chaos. Where do we go? I whispered frantically, there's an exit at the end. We need to hurry. We stumbled forward, guided by instinct and fear. Each echoing footstep resonated louder than the last, creating a rhythm of panic that surged within me. Just when I thought we had found some sanctuary, a voice boomed from behind us, rich and heavy, a malevolent presence breaking through the urgency of our escape. Stop right there. I turned, and there he was, a man in a tailored suit, just as the girl had said. His expression was a sharp mixture of surprise and menace. Different layers of fear tangled up inside me, a knot I couldn't untie. Before I could comprehend what he represented, the girl yanked me away with an intensity that took me by surprise. Not him. Keep running. What was this game we were caught in? I had come here seeking my best friend, and now I was desperately fleeing a figure drawn from a nightmare. As we sprinted, I could feel my heart pounding, not just from the exertion but from an impending realization that this sinister chase was no mere coincidence. Voices behind us thickened in the air. The walls seemed to close in around me, and time felt elastic, stretching with uncertainty. I glanced sideways at the girl, desperate to ask her how she knew all this, what connection she had to Mia. But there was no time, only the haunting truth that each second we lingered risked pulling us back into a darkness I wasn't sure we would escape. My thoughts collided with the realization that danger wasn't just lurking in the shadows, it had followed me from the elevator, igniting a desperate urgency within me. We rounded a corner, and suddenly the corridor ahead opened into a wide room filled with clinical white light. The girl turned abruptly, halting my frantic pace. It's here. She yelled, pointing to an unmarked door at the far side of the room. Inside. It's our only chance. We darted toward it, our footsteps echoing loudly. In that moment of despair, an ember of hope flickered, a chance to rescue Mia. But just as we grasped the doorknob, I heard the unmistakable click of many shoes against cold tile, closing as the door flew open. I caught the fleeting glimpse of a figure lurking in the doorway, a familiar face appearing behind the shadows. You shouldn't have come here. It was Mia. But the look on her face shattered whatever solace her presence should have brought. There was something different, something terrifying in her eyes, and my heart plummeted. What awaited us on the other side, and what darkness had changed her? The realization washed over me with a chilling finality. The danger was far worse than I had imagined, and I was trapped in the eye of a storm I had not prepared for. The sensation of relief evaporated before it could take root. Standing before me was Mia, but she looked so fragile, so distant. My mind raced with questions, a whirlpool of confusion and fear spinning uncontrollably. "Mia!" I gasped, stepping closer, but I felt the girl beside me cling the fabric of my sleeve, holding me back. No. "Don't!" she warned, her voice trembling as though it were etched with the weight of memories I had yet to uncover. Mia's expression morphed into a grimace, a silent scream trapped behind her lips. "You shouldn't have come. It's not safe here, not for you," she managed, her breath shaky. "Not safe?" The words felt like jagged glass tumbling through my heart. "What do you mean?" "We have to leave. Just tell me what's happening." The girl beside me looked between us, her eyes consuming the gravity of the moment. "We can't stay here," she urged, glancing towards the encroaching sound of footsteps we could still hear. "They'll find us." "Who?" I begged, my voice raw, desperation clawing at the edges of my composure. Mia lowered her gaze, looking as though the hunger for truth was a weight on her shoulders. "They control everything," she whispered, the urgency melting into sorrow. "They know about you, about both of us. They won't rest until they have what they want." "What do they want? What does any of this have to do with us?" I felt frustration bubbling within me, but beneath was an ever-deepening well of concern for my friend, a tether that pulled tighter with every passing moment. "Your friendship," she said, her voice almost breaking. "And worse, they want things you cannot imagine." The shadows that danced across her face brought forth memories of laughter, joy, and innocent moments now marred by the weight of unspoken horror. The girl whispered hurriedly, "We need to move, now. We're sitting ducks out in the open." My heart faltered at the urgency in her voice. The knowledge that danger loomed just outside felt suffocating, each second narrowing the window for our escape. "Mia, please, I promise I'll help you. Just tell us what to do." "There's a chance," she said quietly, her face pale but resolute. "But it's risky. We must trust her." She nodded toward the girl beside me, an unspoken bond passing between them. "Why should we trust anyone right now?" I shot back, my heart echoing with uncertainty. But even as the words escaped, I saw the glimpse of recognition in Mia's eyes. A flicker of understanding. The girl stepped forward, grounding her gaze on Mia. "I can help you get out of here, but we have to act. You have to trust me. Trust us." Tension hung thick in the air, palpable and heavy. I weighed my options, a terrible pressure knotting within my chest. Each second was another moment wasted, inching us closer to detection. With a pained exhale, Mia nodded slowly, remorse washing over her features. "Okay." She stepped aside, motioning toward the door she had come through. "But you need to promise me one thing. Whatever happens, you both must stay together. They'll target you if you separate." The girl and I shared a look, a silent agreement passing between us, bolstered by the shared weight of this turmoil. "We won't leave each other," I promised, feeling the weight of these words resonate deep within me. As we moved into the shadowed corridor, the sense of dread began to creep like icy fingers down my spine again. The unfamiliar girl pressed against my side, while Mia took the lead, her familiar presence laced with something unforgiving. The air thickened, laden with a silence that felt as fragile as glass. As we navigated the labyrinth of hallways, the echoes of our footfalls became a dissonant soundtrack to our rapidly collapsing reality. There were more shadows now, looming figures that seemed less friendly and more like puppets of the dark. A loud crash reverberated from behind us, accelerating my pulse. "They've found us," I hissed, instinctively grabbing Mia's hand. The girl pushed ahead, leading us into a dimly lit storage room filled with old medical equipment and an overwhelming sense of decay. "In here," she urged, pulling us inside and shutting the door. Quietly, Anxiety etched into every line of her face that I barely had time to swallow the bile of fear rising in my throat when I caught a glimpse of what lay strewn across one of the Tbilisi collection of photographs, all pinned to a board, and a few stark faces staring back at me. Among them was someone who looked eerily like me, but older, with hollow eyes and a resigned expression. "What is this?" I whispered, the words catching in my throat. As the girl turned, her face paled, and my heart sank further. "It's a warning," she said softly, looking genuinely shaken. "These are the ones they've taken and perhaps who they intend to take next." That I felt the world tilt beneath me. The realization as thick and heavy as lead pressed down upon my chest. "We have to get out now." Just as we all turned towards the door, the ominous sound of footsteps returned, a looming certainty rising from the encroaching darkness. Then, the door burst open, an entrance to the nightmare we had been running from. He was back, the man in the tailored suit, his expression cold, calculating, and more terrifying than before. "Time's up," he announced, a smirk creeping across his lips. "You've made this far too easy." MIA's hand slipped from mine as dread twisted in my belly. The urgency of escape slipped through my grasp like sand through fingers. With each breath feeling heavier than the last, I turned to the girl beside me, a deep-seated terror enveloping my chest. "What now?" But as her lips parted to respond, Mia, consumed by fear and an unyielding resolve, stepped forward, her expression set. "No. I can't let you take them." In that moment, a deafening crash echoed through the room. The air crackled with energy, pushing us back, an explosion of white light engulfing everything, and then, nothingness. The first breath I took after the white light receded felt like emerging from deep water. My surroundings came into focus slowly, the edges of reality sharpening like a camera lens adjusting to clarity. I was on the cold concrete floor of a dimly lit basement, its walls damp and draped with shadows. Mia and the girl were sprawled beside me, groans of confusion tumbling past their lips. "Mia?" I croaked, my voice a raw whisper. I pushed myself up, heart racing as panic clawed at my insides, but relief washed over me as I saw her, dazed, but alive. The girl struggled to her knees, shaking her head as though trying to dispel the remnants of an unsettling dream. "Where are we?" she managed, eyes darting around the desolate room. The chaos of moments ago faded into the background, leaving only an echo of my heart's thunderous beats. "That I don't know," I muttered, desperate thoughts fighting for space. "Mia, are you okay?" She nodded but looked far from reassured. We jumped dimensions, I think. I didn't know it would be like this." Her brow furrowed, disorientation etched deeply into her features. "What do you mean jump dimensions?" My mind raced through the implications of her words, veering into terror. "Could we have crossed into some alternate reality?" "Let me explain," the girl interrupted, her voice steady despite the quivers betraying her anxiety. "Whatever that light was, it's an emergency protocol for those like us. It means we're in a safe house, but it won't hold for long. That's why we have to move fast." "Safe house?" I echoed, skepticism lacing my tone. "And what about the man in the suit?" "He followed us." Mia narrowed her eyes. "We thought we could escape, but he must have known." Her eyes flitted to the girl, a thousand questions passing between them without uttering a single word. "I don't know who that man is," the girl admitted, hands trembling slightly. "But they're worse than hunters. They're orchestrators. They'll stop at nothing, and each second we spend here is another second they're tracing our steps." Remembering the photographs filled with faces that bore a striking resemblance to my own, dread gripped me. "What do they want, really?" "Why us?" "Well, discuss it as we run," the girl insisted. "Follow me. There's a way out of this place." Still reeling, Mia and I exchanged a look, and somehow, we found the resolve to follow. As we stumbled through the dim hall, the heavy thud of footsteps echoed ominously above USA's sickening reminder of the urgency that propelled us onward. With every turn we took, the atmosphere thickened, emotions swirling like a tempest. I half expected to see the man in the suit at every corner. It felt like a cruel game of cat and mouse where our fate hung by a thread, frayed at the edges, what do you know about those photos? I asked, voice firm despite the heaviness that weighed on my soul. They're pieces of a puzzle, the girl said, gaze darting back to ensure we hadn't lost our way. They take people like us. Extract their essence, their faults and virtues, their experiences. They turn them into puppets, things without will. And they'll do the same to anyone who has a bond like you too. Mia shivered beside me. The pit of my stomach twisted at the implications of her words. But what do they choose? Why us? The girl paused, her expression softening as she faced us. It's not just about you, it's about the connections you foster, the light you bring. They can sense the potential in your bonds and want to snuff it out. We can't let them take us, Mia said, determination creeping back into her tone. Well, fight, crashing echoes from the upper floor silenced our conversation. They're coming. The girl urged, sprinting ahead, beckoning us to hurry. With fear and urgency propelling us forward, we navigated through the cloying darkness, the tension vibrating through the air. Every brush against the walls felt like a silent counselor urging us to remember what we were fighting for: our lives, our connections. Just as I thought we might reach safety, an explosion of light illuminated the darkened corridor, causing us to falter. A figure stood in the midst of that glow. Cloaked in shadows, it wasn't the man in the suit but something more unsettling, a silhouette that flickered, hazy around the edges, an apparition of whispers and lingering sorrow. Mia, I called out, but there was no response. She was entranced. Do you hear them? She whispered, gazing into the luminous figure, tears pooling in her eyes. They're calling me, get away from it. I screamed, adrenaline surging as I grasped her arm to pull her back, shaking her free from the ethereal grasp of the unknown. But just before we made our escape, the figure's voice resonated in the stillness. Come back, you're not meant to leave. I felt the cold grip of panic inch up my spine. In desperation, I tore Mia away, the veil of isolation snapping as we broke the hold the figure had on her. As we turned, we ran blindly, hearts racing, trapped between the safety we sought and the unknown horrors still lurking in shadows. But with every step, an unsettling thought pierced through my fear. What if the darkness was calling, not just for Mia, but for me as well? Would I answer, or would I let the light reclaim me? The chill lingered as we sprinted down the corridor, the relentless sound of footsteps chasing us, but we pressed on. In that moment, nothing felt certain, not our safety, not our future. Only the whisper of that figure lingered in my mind, echoing like a death knell, as we bolted into the uncertain night ahead, a night haunted by memories and shadows both familiar and strange. The air was thick with anticipation as we burst through a rickety door, tumbling into the bleak expanse of what appeared to be an abandoned subway station. Old tile floors crumbled beneath our feet, and the scent of mildew clung to the stagnant air, yet there was a sense of freedom in our movement that momentarily dulled the fear gnawing at us. Mia's breath came in quick gasps beside me, her eyes wide, heart racing in tandem with mine. I could see the uncertainty swirling on her face, a mirror of my own turmoil. I wanted to comfort her, to tell her that we would be okay, but the echo of that figure's voice haunted my thoughts like a dark specter. Where now? Mia gasped, glancing back toward the door we had fled through, as though expecting it to swing open at any moment. I'm not sure, I admitted, scanning our surroundings. But we need to find a way to conceal ourselves. We can't let them find us. The girl, who had introduced herself as Lila, surveyed the skeletal remnants of the station with steely resolve. There's an escape route over here, she said, pointing toward a half-hidden door embossed with faded exit signs. If we time it right, we might get past the patrols above. Each heartbeat resonated in my ears, a countdown of dread and excitement fused into one. I caught Mia's eye, and in that brief moment, I saw the flicker of hope there, as fragile as a candle flame. It reminded me that amidst the chaos, we still had each other. As we moved toward the door, Lila whispered instructions, her voice steady amidst the cacophony of anxiety. Stick close and stay quiet. We have to be ready for anything. Just as we reached the door, a piercing scream shattered the silence around us, originating from the depths of the tunnel ahead, a primal sound that made every nerve in my body stand on edge. It was raw, desperate, human. What was that? MIA's voice trembled, panic rising within it like a wave. "Keep moving," Lila commanded, her grip tightening on the door handle. "We can't stop now." We slipped through the door, bracing ourselves against the cold metal frame, hearts in our throats as we crept into the darkness beyond. The tunnel's confined walls pressed in on us, a maelstrom of emotions swirling through the air. I could almost feel the darkness pooling, threatening to absorb us whole. As we moved deeper, we heard whispers low and malevolent, curling around us like tendrils of fog. "They're here," Lila murmured, eyes wide as she scanned the shadows. "We need to stay aware." Our feet barely made a sound against the crumbling gravel underfoot, but I kept hearing echoes of that chilling scream, a reminder that we were not the only souls in this grim place. A swell of fear surged in my chest, twisting and curling like smoke. I could hardly breathe. What if we're not alone? I choked out, visions of beings lurking in the darkness invading my mind. Lila shook her head. "We have to trust each other. We've made it this far." I nodded, but as we continued down the tunnel, a flicker of unease gnawed at me. Then, abruptly, Lila stopped, peering into the encroaching shadows. "Mia, can you stay quiet for a moment?" The urgency in her voice drew my attention, and I felt the creeping chill of danger simmering through the air. "Why?" Mia whispered, confusion etched on her face. "Listen," Lila urged, straining to hear something that was just beyond my perception. And then I felt it too, a faint, pulsating energy echoing through the walls, a rhythm that was distinctly alive. My heart raced, a melange of fear and curiosity surging within me. "What is that?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Lila's expression turned grave. "It's them. They're looking for us." Before we could react, shadows flickered at the periphery of our vision, coalescing into figures that seemed to glide toward us, their faces obscured and eyes glinting like coals in the murky dark. I could barely choke out a breath. "Mia, stay close," I hissed, tightening my grip on her arm once again. Suddenly, one of the shadows raised a hand, not threatening, merely gesturing, like a moth drawn to the flame. "This way," it whispered, the voice grating against the stillness, both haunting and promising. "Don't follow them," Lila exclaimed, panic lacing her voice. But the shadows seemed to weave a spell, pulling me forward against my will. I saw glimpses of faces behind the masks, echoes of familiarity flickering in the dim light. "Mia," I gasped, "do you?" But before I could finish my thought, a jarring sound erupted, a thunderous crash resonating through the hallway as the patrolling figures descended upon us. The shadows flocked like a dark wave and began retreating as Lila cried out, "Run!" We sprinted back down the tunnel, adrenaline surging, but the haunting call of the shadows lingered. No longer feeling the weight of fear alone, I was overwhelmed with an urge to turn back toward the beckoning silhouette to learn the truth of them, of us, but it was too late. As we emerged into the stark, blinding light of the station above, the entryway slammed shut behind us, sealing off the shadows and plunging us once again into uncertainty. Breathless, we collided with the reality of our surroundings, and I found myself haunted by a singular thought: what if the darkness was our only chance at escape? The shadows had offered a hope I couldn't ignore, but now we were trapped, relying on each other, unable to confront what awaited us. Would the darkness reclaim Mia? Would I succumb to its call too? In that moment, surrounded by the remnants of broken lives, confusion gripped my heart with icy fingers as we faced an unknown fate, the weight of unanswered questions still echoing in the air around us. The light from the subway station above illuminated our faces as we stood frozen, heartbeats thundering in unison, eyes wide with the recognition of danger. The door's rusted frame groaned ominously behind us, sealing us off from whatever shadows had just lured us into their eerie embrace. "What do we do now?" MIA's voice trembled, her fear palpable in the air between us. I could see how the stress was seeping into her veins, her shoulders taut with unanswered questions. "That we need to find a safe place to hide." "We can't stay here," I replied, swallowing hard, my mind racing as the adrenaline coursed through my system. But the oppressive silence weighed heavily. It was as if the breath of the tunnel had stilled, waiting for our next move. Lila stepped forward, her determination sparked anew. There's a maintenance access on the other side of the station. If we hurry and keep low, we might find something useful. We need to stay ahead of them. I nodded, urging Mia to follow as I grasped her hand, pulling her along. But every step felt like a gamble, forward thrusting us into uncertain shadows while the light behind us threatened to swallow us whole. As we hurried through the hollow corridors of the dilapidated station, Mia's breath hitched in her throat, catching in a mixture of anxiety and exhaustion. I could feel her resolve wavering, the weight upon her shoulders heavier than our own fears combined. "Hey," I whispered, looking directly into her frantic eyes as we ducked behind a support beam. "We're gonna make it through this. I promise." Mia stared at me, hope flickering like a fading bulb. "What if we don't? What if they catch us?" Her voice shook, laced with doubt. Just then, a faint noise echoed in the distance, a distant hum reverberating off the walls seeping into our thoughts. My heart sank as I recognized it, the sound of boots stomping, a patrol on the move. Instinctively, I felt myself pull her deeper into the shadows, pressing her closer to the gritty wall. "Listen, we can't think like that. We're alive right now, and we need to focus on this moment." The sound drew nearer, a reminder that we weren't truly free yet our escape was only an illusion, like the glimmer of hope that danced just out of reach. We pressed onward, slipping through the maintenance door that creaked ominously but otherwise remained unfazed by our frantic escape. The hidden room contained dusty remnants of old machinery and cobwebs, and every silence echoed with lingering tension. Lila closed the door behind us, then spun to face us, her eyes blazing. "We need to find a way to communicate with the outside world. There may be tools in here." She began rifling through some dusty crates, her movements frantic, hopeful yet desperate that I kept an eye and an ear on the door, straining to hear any signs of our pursuers outside. But it was the weight of uncertainty that gripped me. The shadows we had seen whispered haunting promises, yet now the encroaching reality felt more suffocating than ever. As Lila dug deep into a crate, I turned back to console Mia. "I know it's hard. But we're not alone. We have each other, okay?" She nodded slowly, but there was a flicker of something else in her gaze, a spark of the unanswerable that seemed to flicker just out of reach. What if this is never over? What if we face something worse ahead? My heart twisted. She had put into words the fears that rattled my own psyche. "We can't think that way. For now, let's just focus on getting through the next hour, just one moment after another." Lila's voice suddenly broke into our moment of shared despair. "I think I found something." She pulled out a rusted yet somewhat intact radio, the antenna bent but salvageable. "Maybe we can get a signal." Hope surged momentarily, but just as quickly, it was chased away by another clap of boots on the concrete. The sound grew louder above, a stark reminder that our moment of respite could be short. "We don't have much time," Lila said, gripping the radio tightly. Suddenly, a flash of movement caught my eye, a figure darting across the hallway beyond our door. I tensed, leaning closer to the door to catch a glimpse. But before I could react, it stopped, turning the corner, and the faint light illuminated a familiar face. "Wait." I gasped as recognition hit me like a jolt of electricity. "It's Josh." The sound of boots faded for a heartbeat, and then I pushed the door open, ready to call out his name. But before I could, Lila's hand gripped my arm fiercely. "No, wait. We don't know who else is with him." But it was already too late. I had stepped out into the light, a breath away from hope. "Josh." My voice rang out. He froze, eyes wide, and then a flash of uncertainty swept across his features as he glanced back. I could see the desperation in his look. "You shouldn't be here," he shouted. "They're hunting for survivors, you need to." In that split second, a deafening crash echoed from somewhere deeper in the subway, reverberating through the station walls with explosive force. "Go. Now!" he yelled, urgency lacing his tone. Panic surged in my chest, the realization dawning. The fight was closing in on us, and there was no telling what lay waiting in the shadows. "Come with us," I shouted over the noise as Mia and Lila caught up, all of us desperate for answers and escape, but Josh shook his head fiercely, looking back into the dark corridor he had just emerged from. I can't risk it. You need, please. I begged, feeling helpless, heart throbbing as promise hung in the air. We need each other. We can't face this. But before I could finish, he turned and sprinted back down the tunnel, swallowed whole by the darkness from which he had come. Wait. I called after him, stumbling back as dread roiled in my stomach. Another distant crash. A heartbeat of silence. And then, the chilling laughter echoed from the shadows, sinister and mocking. MIA's face turned pale, and Lila gripped my arm tightly, our shared dread forming an invisible bond. We need to go now, she insisted, tugging me back towards the door. In the midst of our escalating fear, I felt the shadows call again, insistent and overwhelming. It was out there waiting for us to make the next move. And somewhere in the darkness, a heartbreaking realization dawned: maybe the man I had trusted most in my life was, in fact, lost to it. With renewed urgency, we turned to flee, but my mind raced with the weight of uncharted realities, leaving me with the most haunting question of all: what if we already lost him? The air in the dimly lit maintenance room was thick with tension as we huddled together, the echoes of Josh's retreat still ringing in my ears. The laughter had faded, but its imprint remained, a palpable reminder of the peril that now loomed over us like a storm cloud hanging low. We can't stand here. We have to move, Lila insisted, her voice a sharp contrast to the stillness that enveloped us. Her hands still clutched the radio tightly, knuckles white from the strain. Each heartbeat felt like a countdown, the urgency pressing against my chest. I looked to Mia, who stood rooted in place, eyes wide with fear, the flicker of hope we had ignited together dimming fast. Mia, I said softly, coaxingly. We need to go. We can't risk staying here any longer. But when she finally looked at me, her expression was a mixture of resolution and despair. What if we end up like him? Her voice broke, a tear trailing down her cheek, glistening with the weight of unspoken fears. I swallowed hard, knowing the truth of her words hung heavy in the air. Each moment felt like its own crisis, a test of our will to survive. We have to believe he'll be okay. We can't think like that. We need to keep moving for him, for us. Lila stepped in, her own fear now turning into fierce determination. Remember why we're fighting. There are still answers out there, and we need to find them. We can't let this darkness win. I couldn't help but admire her relentless spirit, even in the face of insurmountable odds. Together, we took an uneasy step back toward the door, every creak of the floor beneath us a reminder of the dangers lurking nearby. The metallic tang of despair hung over us, but threading through it was that glimmer of solidarity, the bond tightening as we leaned on one another. As we slipped back out into the corridor, a chill raced down my spine. The shadows loomed longer, twisted shapes of uncertainty searching for a way to entrap us. My thoughts flickered back to Josh, each moment of his absence carving deeper into my heart. Where do we go? Mia whispered. The tremor in her voice mirrored my own uncertainty. We need to head toward the control room. It should be on the next level, Lila said, her voice low and steady. If we can find a way to get the radio working, we might be able to get a signal out. Maybe someone else is out there. Mia nodded, the flicker of hope igniting just long enough to spur us onward. We moved quickly, the urgency of every footstep echoing my unease. The hallways grew narrower, as if they were closing in, but we pressed on, united in this fight for our lives. As we neared the staircase leading up, an unsettling feeling crept into my chest, one fueled by the fear of the unknown. What if we run into them again? I murmured, thinking of the unmistakable footsteps that had haunted our escape. Lila turned, her eyes locking onto mine, determination etched into her features. We face whatever it is together. We've come this far. We can't let fear paralyze us now. One final stride propelled us up the staircase into the control room. I held my breath as we entered, the small space filled with monitors, wires woven like a web above. It felt simultaneously like a sanctuary and a sinister trap. Over here. Lila dove toward an old terminal still humming faintly. I joined her, and together we sifted through the chaos of outdated equipment. The room buzzed with the low drone of machinery, creaking and groaning under the silence that enveloped us like a shroud. As Lila began to work on the radio's wiring, Mia busied herself searching for other tools that could help us escape. She rifled through drawers piled with scattered papers and lost hope, but I could see the fatigue weighing down her every move. Then, she froze, her eyes wide as she pulled a small journal from the back. "Look at this!" she exclaimed, flipping it open. The pages were filled with handwritten notes and sketches, detailing the station's cable systems and layout a detailed map. It made my heart race. "This could help us," I said, moving closer to look. The intricate lines bled across the page, merging and intertwining, like the threads of our lives now tightening around us. "If we find the maintenance hatch, we can cut through to other lines," but just as Mia pointed out a possible escape route, Lila shouted with urgency, "It's working. I've got a signal." The radio crackled to life, a static-filled voice filtering through. The tension in the room shifted, the air thickened with renewed hope. "Mia! Come listen." Suddenly, everything erupted into chaos. The unmistakable sound of heavy footfalls echoed outside the control room, accompanied by the sharp chatter of voices. My heart dropped. "We need to go," I cried, yanking Lila back from the radio. But even as I spoke, my body was already moving to grab Mia and pull her to safety. In that moment of panic, the world around us blurred, urgency overshadowing rational thought. The door burst open, shadows spilling into the room, and just before I could turn to face what awaited us, the radio emitted a final, haunting cry. "If anyone can hear this, they're coming for you." The laughter returned, encircled us, a twisted echo of despair. Unable to turn back, I pushed Mia and Lila forward, heart racing, a new surge of adrenaline propelling us down the alternate corridor. But the echoes of that chilling message hung heavy in the air, an unshakable reminder that we were no longer just running, we were being hunted. With every heartbeat, dread clawed at my insides, darker thoughts spiraling. Had Josh truly left us? Or had he, like many others, already succumbed to that merciless shadow? As we dashed further into the breach, I realized that surviving the night was becoming more than just a fight. It was a battle to cling to the fragments of hope we still had left, even when the world around us whispered of loss. The corridor stretched out before us, a yawning maw of uncertainty, every flickering light overhead casting elongated shadows with ghostly fingers reaching toward us. The sound of our footsteps reverberated off the walls, a reminder that we were not just moving through the building but also through the murky waters of our own fears. I could feel Mia's hesitation radiating off her, her breath shallow, words unspoken clinging to her lips. "That we can't slow down," I urged, though my voice wavered with the weight of impending dread. "We have to keep going. Do we even know where we're running?" Mia shot back, her frustration spilling out. "What if we're just running into a trap?" Just as despair threatened to tighten its grip, Lila turned to face us, her expression fiercely determined. "We have the map. It's not just chaos, we have a plan now. We can still find daylight in this hell." I nodded, drawing strength from her conviction. It was easy to forget the map, with its complex pathways leading to potential exits, buried beneath the anxiety clawing at me. But there it was in my mind, a lifeline amidst the chaos. As we trekked deeper through the corridors, glimpses of our surroundings ignited memories of the station's brighter moments, children laughing during summer camps, employees sharing meals during the holidays. Those memories felt surprisingly distant now, flickering like dying embers. The realization settled like a stone in my stomach. Those moments felt stolen, only fragments of who we used to be, swallowed by the darkness encroaching our reality. Mia stumbled, the echoing laughter that once bounced in our ears now taunting us for having once thought ourselves safe. I reached out, grabbing her arm. "Well, get through this," I whispered, even though a part of me wasn't sure, but just as I steadied her, a deafening crash erupted behind us. Glass shattered, sending shards sprinkling like raindrops, and our hearts plummeted in synchrony. I turned, panic surging to the surface, only to see more shadows flitting in our direction, not just the heavy thuds of pursuers, but silhouettes of a light streaming in from an open door nearby. Over here. Lila pointed frantically, and without hesitation, we made a run for it, our feet pounding against the ground in a visceral rhythm of desperation. A flickering fluorescent sign buzzed overhead as we burst through the door and into the maintenance room, a refuge filled with forgotten machines and dust-soaked memories. Through the chaos of nerves, something glimmered among the debris. A slender toolbox, rusted but intact. Friends from the past. Love letters had nothing on the revelation that it held tools that could help us more than words ever could. I rifled through the contents, clutching a wrench to my chest, the cold metal like a talisman against the unknown lurking just outside. What do we do now? Mia asked, her voice shaking, but the spark in her eyes held on to the hope we needed. We can't just hide. The voices outside, they won't stop. They're looking for us. Then let's not be found, I replied. We have to use this time to figure out our next move. Lila retrieved the journal and examined the pages again, scanning for a new route. The scribbled sections began to blur, swirls of ink jumping out as if warning us. A spot was circled in red, deeper in the heart of the building, an emergency exit marked only by a fading light. It connects to the next level, Lila said suddenly, hope coursing through her voice. If we can get there, we might have a chance. Isn't that where they'll look for us? Mia's voice dropped into a whisper, trailing off into silence, the shadows breathing around us. Exactly, Lila said, and that's why it might just work. They wouldn't expect us to be where it's already been compromised. An uneasy sense of bravery surged, igniting the mantra echoing in my head. We were not victims. We were survivors. As we huddled together, making plans that kept creeping toward the impossibility of escape, another blast of sound crashed through the door. Panic surged, drowning out the flickering light of hope. Now! I hissed, and we darted toward a small exit at the back, bracing ourselves against the cold steel. We squeezed through, my heart racing faster than ever, an ache resonating in the ebbing adrenaline, when something shifted in the air. I barely registered the tingling sensation before a voice echoed softly behind us, a shadow of familiarity. Help me, please. It was a cry tinged with desperation, one I recognized immediately. My heart lurched, an urgent pounding filling my ears as I turned to see a familiar face brought low by shadows, hunched and trembling. My breath caught in my throat. Josh. For a moment, everything seemed to fracture, the world around us pulsating in a cruel dance. His eyes met mine, wide and filled with terror, a reflection of all our unspoken fears. But just as I felt hope surge, could it be, more shadows loomed, blocking our way, the echoes of our own dread swallowing everything else around us. Move! Lila shouted. We can't stay here. The tension suffocated us as I turned away, the flickering light of that last chance fading. And as I clutched the weight of regret in my chest, we tore ourselves away from the chance of rescue, driven forward not by courage but by the fear of losing ourselves completely. In that dark moment, with our paths diverging, our choices felt like the heaviest burden of all, leading us deeper into the unknown where survival was no longer promised. The narrow corridor opened up into a dimly lit atrium, the air thick with an oppressive silence that seemed to press in from all sides. I could still hear Josh's plea echoing in my ears, mingled with the sound of my own racing heartbeat. Doubt crept into my mind, wrapping its icy fingers around my resolve. Was leaving him behind our greatest mistake yet, Mila? Lila's voice cut through my turmoil, urgent and sharp. Focus. I shook my head, disbelief mingling with the guilt weighing down on my chest. We can't just leave him. He needs us. He's not safe, Mia interjected, her voice low yet unwavering. Staying here is a risk we can't afford. We have to trust he'll find his way, but how could I trust in anything anymore? As we pressed on, each step resonated through my body like a drumbeat heralding impending doom. Shadows breathed and shifted with us, the whispers of our own fears intermingling with the creeping darkness. Lila turned toward an archway, where the flickering light did little to alleviate the heavy shadows clinging to its edges. This way might be able to find the exit. The passage was narrow, just wide enough for us to squeeze through as we ducked beneath low-hanging pipes, the metallic scent of rust mingling with the musty air. With every step, my mind spiraled, thoughts dancing around Josh, his laughter, his kindness, the way he always seemed to know what to say when the world felt too heavy. And yet, I was being led deeper into this labyrinth of uncertainty, away from the very people I wanted to save. Each breath felt like a betrayal. There's something wrong. Mia's voice broke the tension as she glanced behind us. It's too quiet that I turned, straining my ears to catch any sound, but only the echo of our footsteps responded. Lila's grip on the journal tightened, her knuckles widening as they studied the pages under the flickering light. There has to be another way. Lila's voice trembled with an edge of desperation. She flipped through the wrinkled pages furiously, desperation molding her features. I've got an idea, I whispered, though the words felt shaky as they left my mouth. The service elevator might be nearby. If we can reach it, an elevator? Mia interjected, panic tinging her voice. What if it's compromised? What if it's our only chance? I cut her off. We can't keep wandering aimlessly. We can find each other again if we split up. For the first time, I saw a spark of certainty behind Mia's fear. She took a deep breath, nodding slowly. Okay, lead the way. Every step felt like a silent leap of faith, a dance with the unknown that spurred us forward. The shadows shifted, as though they were sentient, curling around us as we raced through the half-lit corridors. Finally, an opening appeared ahead, marked by an infrequent shimmer of light. There! My heart leaped. The service elevator stood directly in front of us, worn and shrouded in neglect. The scratched metal doors reflected the pale lights above, casting elongated shadows that seemed to mock us. Do we really want to risk this? Mia's voice quivered with uncertainty, reading the fear in the depths of my eyes. It was a risk, a reckless abandon of what we held dear, and yet, it was possible salvation. We don't have a choice, I said, stepping forward and pressing the call button. The ding echoed hauntingly, a promise of potential deliverance, or perhaps despair. The elevator frightened me. It was like a monster's mouth, a gap that threatened to swallow us whole. But before any hesitations could simmer to the surface, the metal doors creaked open, revealing an empty dark compartment. A flicker of courage ignited within me. We need to go. Now. As we stepped inside, the doors closed like the end of a chapter, leaving the world behind us momentarily suspended in uncertainty. It was dark within the elevator, the kind of darkness that drained away hope with every passing second. The only sound was the heavy thumping of our hearts. What now? Mia pleaded, her eyes wide in the obscurity. Lila glanced at the panel of buttons, hesitating, then pressed down, her finger lingering over an option marked basement, the very depths of this shadowy place. If we go to the basement, it might lead to the exit, I finished, though doubt gnawed at my insides. Or the worst place we could end up, then we'll make a run for it. But we stick together, no matter what. Lila's resolve shone through the darkness, tethering me to the moment. A sudden jolt ran through the elevator, followed by a deafening clang that rattled our bones. Static filled the air, and I could sense the walls closing in, darker than ever. Hold on! Mia shouted just as the lift lurched violently, plummeting down, the weightlessness seizing our stomachs like the fear that choked us. Then, moments of weightlessness turned into dragging pressure, the world spinning as we hurtled toward the unknown, and just when our thoughts began to spiral into sheer panic, the elevator ground to a sudden halt. We exchanged wide-eyed glances, each of us feeling the cold sweat treat our skin like frost. I breathed heavily, the adrenaline surging through me as I flung the doors open, wondering if the basement would greet us with freedom or snare us deeper into a web of darkness. But just as I stepped out, a voice I'd prayed to never hear again rang out amid the shadows. It's about time you showed up. My breath hitched in my throat, recognition slicing through the darkness. A voice from my past, toxic and visceral, dredging up feelings I had thought buried. The figure stepped into the dim light, its face illuminated in a sickly glow. It was Nathan, my older brother, the estranged sibling I had spent years trying to forget, now standing before me like a haunting specter. The face I once knew well was twisted with malice, eyes reflecting a darkness that sent chills down my spine. "You thought you could escape me?" he sneered, injecting venom into every syllable. "In a place like this? You've underestimated everything," Nathan. I spoke through clenched teeth, fighting the wave of old wounds and resentments crashing over me. How had he found me here? This wasn't just a twist of fate, it was a nightmare resurrected. "What are you doing here?" "I'm here for something much bigger than you," he replied, voice cold and mocking. "And you were supposed to be out of the equation. But here you are, of course, back to play the hero." My heart raced as he stepped closer, shadows trailing behind him like conspirators in the dark. Fear blossomed within me, but it was quickly upheld by the resolve that surged stronger within my chest. This was not just about me anymore. With Mia and Lila safely behind me, I was responsible for them too. My thoughts raced as they processed his words, seeking a way back to light. "What do you want from us?" I demanded, voice steady despite the turmoil swirling in my mind. I squeezed Mia's hand tightly, drawing strength from her presence. "You've lost it, whatever this is. It's messed up beyond anyone's understanding. You need help." He laughed, a low, guttural sound. "Help? I don't need help. I'm on the verge of something extraordinary. And you're in the way. I always knew I could use your bond against you. Look around, this place thrives on connections, and yours will be my greatest weapon." Panic surged as I realized the implication. He meant to exploit us, to use our friendship as a gateway to whatever darkness this place spurred. No. Lila burst out in a fury, her voice cutting through the suffocating tension like a knife. "We're not letting you take anyone." She stood firm beside me, uncertainty now hardened to a fierce conviction. "You're all fools," Nathan sneered, that sinister smile creeping onto his face, eyes narrowing as he took a step closer. "You think you can fight it? You're already entangled in this web. It's only a matter of time before you succumb." There was a brief flicker of something. Doubt? Fear? For a split second, I saw a crack in his armor. It was clear Nathan was fighting something deeply buried within him, something tethered to our family that wanted out, that yearned for the warmth we once shared amidst the shadows. Perhaps, somewhere below layers of anger and pain, he ached to belong. "Nathan, we can do this together," I pleaded. "Let go of the darkness. We can find a way out. You can't escape what you really are by pulling us under." For a moment, his expression flickered, frustration wrestling with vulnerability, drawing me in closer. "You think you understand? You don't know anything. I know you were my brother," I shouted, voice raw with emotion. "I know you're lost, but you don't have to stay this way. We can fix this." It was as if a distant voice, a memory perhaps, echoed in the recesses of his churning mind. I gasped inwardly, hoping that this was the voice that could pull him back. But Nathan shook his head, rage bubbling anew, and in that moment I realized it wasn't just darkness he was summoning, it was an entire lifetime of regret screaming to overpower him. Dread twisted within me, but fear alone could not shift the tide. Love was what I possessed, the kind that pulsed in my heart, the spirit of resilience forged through chapters of laughter and tears shared with Mia and Lila. "Let us help you, please." I tried again, desperately reaching out as the aisle narrowed between us, feeling the pull of history and hidden truths thrumming like heartstrings in the air. "We can find the light together." "You want a chance?" He hesitated, eyes glassy and conflicted as layers of past pain warped open. It was a heart-wrenching moment, hanging in the balance between the life I hoped for him and the dark grip that held him hostage. But just then, the ground shuddered, vibrating with furious energy. "Enough of this," he snarled, energy coiling like a tempest. "You chose to stand against me." Before I could react, shadows poured from behind him, crawling forth like ravenous beasts. "Run. We need to go," Lila shouted, her urgency shattering the moment. I grabbed Mia's hand, adrenaline pumping through my veins, the desire to protect and flee surging wildly as the darkness encroached. We barreled deeper into the building, weaving through shadows that seemed to grasp at us, whispers of Nathan's laughter curling like sinister smoke around. The walls pulsed, vibrating with the remnants of chaos as we sprinted down the endless corridors, desperation lending strength to our escape, but the tightening darkness surged to embrace us, the echoes of Nathan's voice ringing in my ears. "You'll regret this." It cried out, the feelings of brotherly resentment erupting with every syllable, a reminder of the lives once lived, now entwined in heartbreak. Up ahead, a glimmer of light broke through the chaos, a stark reminder of possibility. "There." I pointed toward the exit shimmering like a beacon. We raced toward it, hearts thundering, hands gripping tightly as though tethering ourselves to a thread of hope. As we burst through the exit, the cool night air filled our lungs, fresh and invigorating, chasing away the darkness that had threatened to swallow us whole. The streets flooded with onlookers, the blinking lights of sirens tearing through the horizon. "Look! It's them!" Someone shouted, as various figures rushed toward us, but amidst the relief was the pang of sorrow. I peeked back, dreading the possibility of Nathan emerging behind us, battling whatever darkness haunted him. Distraint settled heavy within my chest, but I couldn't yield any more. By stepping out, I realized we were not just free, we had survived together. As we were swept into the embrace of familiar voices, comfort washed over me, reminding me that no matter how haunted we may be by shades of our past, it was the connections we forged that would illuminate the path ahead. "Come on, let's go home," I whispered to Mia, squeezing her hand just as tightly as I could, allowing myself to breathe in the crack of dawn as her smile shone like a new beginning, a new chance. In that moment, I knew that darkness could only chase us if we kept running. It had no power in the light of love, and together, we would face every shadow, past and present, with unwavering resolve, hand in hand, because sometimes, the hardest battles lead to the most necessary transformations, and in the heart of it all, love will always reign supreme. "We will find our way," I murmured, my heart filled with unwavering hope, as we stepped into the light, knowing it was only the beginning of a new story, our story.